Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, and I have with me Shannon. I don't know if they heard you.
I said, and I'm Shannon Penrod.
Yes, Shannon's with us via phone today because she is traveling. She's on the road doing some work. Shannon, tell us what you're up to out there. You're coming to us from Vancouver, Washington.
Yes, I am. We just got into Vancouver, Washington just a few minutes ago, and we've been up here the last couple of days in Portland and last night in Salem, Oregon. And today we're going to be in Vancouver all day long. Right now we are at a card center in Vancouver, and it's bustling. Boy, this place is hopping. All kinds of things are happening here. It's so exciting. The energy when you walk in the door and you see all these kids learning and having fun. It's very exciting. So we're up here. Jem and I both are up here, and we're meeting with therapists and we're meeting with families. This card has something called the PTA, which stands for Parents That Are Truly Amazing, and we meet on a regular basis to support each other. So I'm up here doing some PTA meetings, and we're also doing some workshop performances, invited only performances of autism monologues, and you can hear it in my voice. I've been talking so much that my voice is about a full octave lower than it normally is, but we're having a really good time. It's so beautiful up here, Nancy, and I'll tell you what, the air is so crisp and clean, and it smells like Christmas trees up here.
Oh, lovely.
So we're enjoying it thoroughly and having a great time meeting families and their kiddos and seeing their kiddos make improvement. It just warms my heart.
That's great. Well, how long are you on the road for?
We'll be back in the Los Angeles area on Saturday. So
Okay.
It's just a week that we're up here, and it's not long enough. It's not long enough, but we're having a really good time.
Okay, good. We're glad to hear it. Well, you want to start? We've got some in the news stories. You want to start with that?
Yeah, let's dive right in, because there's some pretty, I have to say, almost all of it. We're going to start with the less positive thing, but almost all of it is positive.
Yeah, there's an article from Spectrum News that's titled "Faulty Use of Data Threatens Early Intervention for Autism." You want to explain what that's about?
Yeah, it's so important that we are all being vigilant and making sure that the rights that are put into place by IDEA are protected. And two very important people, a professor at the University of Miami and an associate professor at the University of Colorado, have raised a concern that they're seeing a trend, that there is a way that all of our kids that have developmental disabilities are entitled under IDEA Section C to get early intervention before the age of 3, and that's paid for under that Part C. But part of the way that they judge who can deliver that treatment is that they have to show that they're effective. Well, that makes sense, right? We all want to take our kids to places that are effective.
Right.
But they're taking issue with the way they're judging whether it's effective, because what we've noticed over the years is that kiddos on the autism spectrum all can learn. It just takes them a little while longer.
Mm-hmm.
And that because these interventions end at the age of 3, there isn't a whole lot of time when the kids are diagnosed with autism that they're in these interventions. And so what we're seeing is, because the way they're evaluating these places, they're starting to give them low evaluations if they have a bunch of kids with autism, because those kids are going to take longer to learn, and so it drags their scores down. And the fallout from that is that we're seeing that some places are saying they don't want to take kids with autism because their score is going to go down. That means that there's less places for us to take our kiddos and get services before 3 and have them paid for under that particular program. We don't want that. That would be a very bad thing for autism, and it's not really a fair judge. So all these two professors are doing is raising an alarm, saying that we should all be aware of it, and we should all be lobbying for the scale that decides whether those early start programs are effective, takes into consideration kiddos with autism and the fact that it's going to take them longer. It doesn't mean it's less effective, And it's not throwing away the whole rating system, because we want to make sure that somebody's checking up and making sure that it's effective, but it's saying, please make room for the fact that our kids are going to take a little bit longer to get to that progress. And I think that's super duper important.
And how can parents go about lobbying for that, though?
Well, that's a good question. This article had come to us from Spectrum News, and it lists the two professors, Bataya Album, the professor at University of Miami, and Steve Rosenberg, associate professor, at the University of Colorado. So I don't know whether we reach out to them. I'm certainly going to be looking into that, because this concerns me. We don't want to see an end to early start programs for our kiddos on the spectrum.
Right. Okay. All right. Once again, that was from Spectrum News, and if you want to check that out and read it more in depth, please go ahead and do so. We have some feel-good stories today for In the News. We have there was a Boy Scout who was missing, 13-year-old Boy Scout, who was missing after he went hiking he was separated from his group for nearly a day and a half in Wyoming, Garrett Hunter, and he was found by a group of volunteers about 1 mile from his campsite.
And amazing, some of the lengths that this youngster went to keep himself safe. We talk a lot about the fact that Boy Scouts is highly recommended for our kids on the spectrum. That it's a wonderful way for them to make friends. It's a wonderful way for them to learn skills. It gives parents time for them to be someplace else that isn't necessarily respite, but it is respite. You're not paying for it. And the skills that they learn can be life-saving, clearly, from this 13-year-old who was able to spend that amount of time by himself.
Yes, he had a sleeping bag, food, and a water filter, and was able to maintain, survive and do quite well.
Yeah, so grateful that he has been found. I know that his family is probably heaving a huge sigh of relief, as are that entire troop of Boy Scouts. I can't imagine how traumatic it was for all of them, plus for Garrett. But that he is safe, we're all really, really grateful. I'll tell you, too, what this brought up for me, Nancy. We talk a lot about when our kids are lost or elope or wander.
Right.
And I don't know if you've seen in the news the last couple of days, Bodie Miller, who was the Olympic skier.
Yes, whose daughter had the tragic drowning accident. They lost their little girl.
But he and his wife have come forward in the last few days and been speaking out, along with another mom, about death by drowning. And of course, from Act Today, this is a cause that you've been sounding an alarm about for a really long time.
Right. It's the number one cause of death, not only in children with autism, but also in all children, I think, ages 1 to 4, they were saying.
And for the first time on the news the other day, I saw newscasters in covering this story talking about the fact that you can be so vigilant, but it doesn't matter if we all look away at some point. And while I hate this story, my heart bleeds for the Miller family. I am encouraged that the news is covering this story in a way that reminds all of us that no one can be just vigilant.
Right.
That there are other things that have to be in place. And, and hearing about this 13-year-old that, he stepped away and nobody saw it. I mean, it's amazing how it can happen. But I know that that's been very near and dear to your heart, and that Act Today does so many things to help with those kinds of issues.
Yes, we have grants for tracking devices and for fences and for also for swimming lessons. We've had programs for that. I think it's really important, as you said, not to focus. This is not bad parenting. This is, it's a far more complex issue than that.
Right. So you want to talk about these emotional support ducks, Nancy? Because this got me a little riled up.
Yes, this Michigan boy with autism was told to give up his emotional support ducks, but his parents say they calm his anxiety. This was in Newsweek. About a young boy, Dylan Dyke, who is 12. And Dylan has mothered 2 ducks named Nibbles and Bill for 2 years. and his
Did you
parents.
just want to write a children's book about Nibbles and Bill?
Nibbles and Bill. Yeah, I know. And they basically follow Dylan wherever he goes. And his parents, Mark and Jen, says he relies on them now to navigate, to cope with his emotion and autism-specific anxieties. But apparently, duck neighbors have begun to complain that the ducks had strayed onto their property, defecated in their yards, left a lingering smell. And now the officials in Michigan's Georgetown Township told the families they violated local zoning ordinances that prohibit residents from keeping exotic pets, which I don't know that ducks are exotic pets, but I guess that they're saying
I've never
so.
thought of a duck as being exotic myself.
Right.
But this story just goes completely off the rails into, looking at, okay, well, can they have the ducks? Can they not have the ducks? But I want to go back to common sense. That people placed the complaints, which is why the ordinance has been brought up, and yet the family never, ever got a single complaint from anybody in their neighborhood. If we could just get back to basic civility and having conversations, I am sure that if two ducks came over and constantly were defecating in your lawn and it left a lingering smell, I wouldn't like it either.
Right.
But that becomes, can we just not have a conversation and go back to these people and say, hey, your duck defecated in my lawn. Look, I live in a residential neighborhood where people come by and there are doggy bags posted on trees, and no one is supposed to have their dog do anything on a lawn. They're supposed to pick it up. We always have dog poop on our lawn. And it's a reality of living with neighbors, and there have been times when I have seen a dog repeatedly do it, and I have said to that person, could you please use the bag to pick it up? And they don't do it, and life goes on. But for somebody to actually get to the point where they're filing complaints saying you have to get rid of the ducks,
right,
and maybe they don't know that they're emotional support ducks, but then when you do know, can you just take a moment, take a breath, and think about what's more important? That this little boy, and he's already lost one duck and been devastated.
yes, he
two
lost
ducks.
a
These are not
duck.
elephants.
He lost a duck before middle school, and they said that it just completely devastated him, and was very, very upsetting. And so now he got these other two ducks. And by the way, emotional support animals like Bill and Nibbles are protected by the Fair Housing Act, which requires landlords to allow assistance pets with or without certification to live with their owners, even on property that prohibits household pets. So,
and they're considered different from service animals. So there are fewer rights that they have. But this has become, apparently this is a hot topic, not just because of ducks, but because people have now started trying to take their emotional support animals on planes with them. And there have been incidents. This is where I say it goes completely off the rails. There have been incidents, apparently 85 incidents since 2016, when they started allowing passengers to take emotional support animals on planes. That people have taken turkeys, sugar gliders, which I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that in my life. Kangaroos, snakes, and spiders onto planes. And I get it. I mean, at what point do you go, okay, now that's ridiculous? Finally, they made a decision that if you had hooves, you could not come on a plane because there were people who wanted to take small ponies on planes.
Actually, the miniature horses, which are used for the blind, are accepted from that. They can be allowed.
So, but where does the small miniature horse sit on the plane?
I guess it stands in the aisle. I don't know.
How do people get? How do they get the drink cart by?
I really don't know.
And you see why people get caught up in this. Well, can they have? Can they not have? But it's two ducks. It is not. Two elephants. I'm just saying common sense here.
Right, common sense, and this little boy, Dylan Dyke, definitely needs them for his emotional support. So we'll see how this controversy unfolds. Hopefully it'll result in him being able to keep the ducks.
And somebody please write a children's book called Nibbles and Bill, because if they don't, I'm going to have to. It's too cute.
It is too cute. Okay.
Too cute.
And we had one other story about a brother who started a petition to change UT, which I suppose is University of Texas.
It's
program?
Tennessee.
Oh, it's University of
I thought the same
Tennessee.
thing, and I looked it up. It's Tennessee.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
To allow his twin brother with autism to live in a dorm, because there was the program. The program is presently 2-year and non-residential. So, a
The
young
thing
man
I
named
found really sweet about this is that the brother, I just love autism siblings. They're some of the best people on the face of the earth.
Mhm.
And this brother has stepped up repeatedly to make sure that his brother was included all through grade school and junior high and high school. And now they're both at college, but big brother is staying in a dorm room, and little brother has been told that he can't, even though he's a student there and he's in a program that's there. And UT is saying, look, this program has a mission, and to date, it has been a mission where we don't have residential services and we don't have support. But Big Brother is saying, well, maybe you should look at that. Maybe it should be something different. And UT has agreed to look at it and see if it's feasible, if it would be good for the students, and if they can do it. I just think these are the ways that the world changes, and that the legacy that these two brothers are going to leave behind, I think they're going to be successful in talking UT into this at some point. Maybe it takes them a while, but the legacy will be that there will be more kids who will be able to live on campus. And 10 years from now, we're going to look back and it's just going to be like, well, of course you can go to UT and stay on campus and be in the dorms and be included. And won't that be a great thing?
And there's a change.org petition, by the way, on this.
And because we do want people to put pressure on UT to see that, and case by case, maybe everyone can't live on campus, but if somebody can, and if they can be accommodated, that would be a worthwhile thing. That would add to that campus, because we're always trying to make college campuses be a microcosm for the world. And if you don't have individuals on the autism spectrum staying and living on that campus, you're not really getting it done, are you?
No, you're not. So you can join that on change.org, the petition. Mike Kretich is the brother, Miles Kretich. And you can support that by going on change.org, on the change.org petition, which I believe we have up. Samantha
Fabulous.
has up, right.
Now, you and I have pre-recorded some interviews that we want to show the audience.
We have. We've got some great guests today. We've got AJ Perot Wilde, who is really a design expert in the field of autism. So she's going to talk about that. And then later we have a young actor by the name of Jacob Lentz, who is drawing a lot of attention for his performance in a new film called Nathan's Kingdom. And Jacob himself is on the autism spectrum, and he plays a young man with autism. So first we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We will be with AJ Perot Wilde talking about interior design for those on the spectrum. So stay with us.
Inclusion is everything. Feeling like we have a place where we belong, and when I say we, I'm first and foremost a mother of a child on the spectrum and not, and gym owner and now founder of carrying this to families who need it as well.
My son is extremely hyperactive. Getting him to calm down is a very difficult task. So the idea of Rock the Spectrum Gym, where he could just go and run and play and do all these fun things without any kind of worries and just go, go, go and bring down that energy, it helps us so much at home. In the home or at school, it's not acceptable, but this is the one place it is acceptable for the child to kind of be themselves and get it all out there and just really just be themselves.
It's an amazing place where my son could go and be himself. You get to meet other parents who are in the same journey as you are.
I think the most popular aspect of it is how they include all children of all types, not just only learning disabled, lower functioning, moderate functioning, high functioning, and non-disabled.
people there are so friendly. Everybody's like family. They always greet you with a smile. There's not one negative thing I could say about any of the employees. They're all absolutely amazing. So I think every parent should walk in through those doors and see what an amazing gym it is.
Now a diagnosis being 1 out of 6 kids are in some way or form affected with sensory processing disorder or autism. That's why We Rock Now is on the rise. People want to be a part of it. People know that they have a community there. They know that they can learn more information about things that they don't know themselves or that they can share, build friendships, and basically get what you get in an OT facility, but it's not $150 an hour. It's $12.
Hello activists, let's talk about step 7. Recognize your gifts and abilities. Whatever gifts and abilities you had before autism entered your life, you have them now. And I bet you've developed some that you didn't even know you had. Those gifts and abilities are going to help you in your journey of parenting a child with autism spectrum disorders. Maybe you're a born researcher, teacher, negotiator, or organizer. Well, you're going to need all of those talents. And you could find a whole new calling. That's what happened to me. If you had told me 20 years ago that I was going to leave behind a career as a television producer to work as an autism advocate and activist, I would have said, you're nuts. If you don't think you have any special gifts or abilities, ask someone who loves you. They'll tell you what they are. I guarantee you, you have them. What's your special gift? Find it, use it, for yourself, for your child, for the good of all concerned. Until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, and now we are joined by a special guest. We have A.J. Perot Wilde, who is an interior designer, a national architectural and design manager, in fact.
With
Welcome to the
great
show.
experience with designing for autism, and is also an autism mom.
Yes.
So many different things that we want to talk about with you, but maybe we should start with autism mom.
Yeah.
Were you a designer first and then became an autism mom? Did
Yes.
that sort of, help push you towards design for autism?
I actually wanted to be an interior designer since I was in 8th grade. So I was one of those people that just was really driven and passionate about design and was an overachiever in college and was doing everything, and actually was given a company to run at 25.
Wow.
So it was
A design company.
Yeah, a design build company. So, so I had a lot of experience, but my thesis in school was actually designing for Alzheimer's. And so I had studied so much about the psychological ramifications of the environment on other mental health issues. So when my son was diagnosed about age 3, I immediately thought, well, there must be tons of research on this. There must be, book loads of evidence-based research, and there was none.
Yeah, I was going to say,
zero.
and then when you found out that you were going to pioneer that area, was that exciting to you, or was that daunting?
It was really daunting, but I luckily had amazing mentors. There's actually doctorates of interior design, and I know most all of them.
Okay.
And a few doctors of interior design really encouraged me. They said, you can do this. Someone needs to do this, and it might as well be you.
So you kind of took the lead in designing for autism.
Yes, I really started looking at the neurofunctions of what's happening in the brain, and one of the first books I read that made me think, wow, there is something here, was Temple Grandin's Thinking in Pictures.
Right.
And understanding how she looked at the environment and what she was experiencing and how different it was. And as an interior designer, you design for the 5 senses, but you design for what it's like for you, right? It's your experience. And so what I've had to do is teach people design empathy. What is it like for someone else to experience that color or that brightness, or how is that receptive to them? And it might be completely different than it is in your own experience.
So I'm curious, when you're dealing with a client who wants to make a space that's more autism friendly, what are some tips and tricks that you give them to make it more inclusive?
So it's interesting because it's changed over the years. The first 10 years we were trying to get people to minimize things and be able to control the environment, right? Whether it's color or lighting
So
or
less
acoustics.
sensory input.
Yes, and because think about it, everything designed for a child is in primary colors,
Right.
which is for 90% of the kids with autism is the worst thing in the world.
Absolutely.
And so it's really hard to take color off of walls in the environments, but it's much easier to have a blank slate and then add things and then being able to take them down. So it's trying to change the philosophy so it doesn't look like Ronald McDonald came in there and threw up.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's simplifying it. But then we actually had the challenge of, because everything was so simplified, it started to look institutional.
Yes.
And the families, like the mothers and the fathers and the grandparents, didn't like their child going to a place that felt like an institution. And the therapist actually had a hard time doing that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel warm and gushy to
Right.
them.
And they need the stimuli,
Right.
whereas these kids don't.
Right.
And so what we've had to do is figure out how to balance that framework and making sure that it is stimulating for the other caregivers and the therapists in certain areas where it's okay to have that, or it's not primary for therapy to be happening there, or something really pivotal. And so they have enough stimuli that it makes them feel good that they're there.
Absolutely.
And then it's still controlled for the individuals that need that therapy.
Now, we have some pictures of some of the spaces that you've worked on, and so talk to us a little bit about, tell us what we're seeing.
Well, this is a home environment, and it was interesting. It was for a little boy, and you can tell by the picture the color of the room. We changed it from yellow stripes to a light pink. Now this took the father of the little boy was not excited. But some of this came from the research of, I don't know if you've ever heard of the prison research studies on color, that they painted all these prison cells different colors and found that this very subtle pink color was the one that actually kept people most calm.
Really?
And so through a lot of other research, that warm kind of taupey, not Pepto-Bismol pink, but but something that's very pastel and muted and more in the warm tones. The children tend to do better on that. So it's also simplifying.
And it looks like you simplified quite
Yes,
a bit. Yeah,
yes.
so there wasn't as much sensory input,
Right. And then there's the toxicology standpoint. You know,
Okay.
when you're looking at the environment and you're looking at all these kids have, allergy issues
Yes.
and dust mites and things like that. And so, using like 100% wool, unless the child's allergic to wool,
Right.
or cotton, and simplifying it, but also making sure that they're not getting any VOCs from the environment that's going to make them worse.
Yeah, I think we've all gotten so used to, like, when things come and they have a stench to it, a chemical stench.
right.
I went to buy a pair of shoes, designer shoes, that were athletic shoes, and I opened the box, and the smell that wafted off of them. I said, I had to get on a plane, and I said, they're not going to let me on the plane with this.
Right.
They smell like they're going to catch fire.
Right.
And the people in the store were like, oh, that's what all the shoes smell like.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
said, no, they don't. Open this one. It doesn't smell that
Yeah.
way. We shouldn't be putting things in our
No.
kids' rooms
So you
that have that smell.
You take that into effect too.
Absolutely. And I'm a designer that is a LEED accredited professional, which is
What does that mean?
LEED is Leadership for Energy and Environmental Design. And so I've really helped push the toxicology effects on human beings. And I have to say, like, corporate environments and hospitals and all these other commercial regulated interiors, you could eat a lot of the furniture and stuff now. It's so we're so vigilant on the types of adhesives we're using, the paint we're using, but that doesn't always translate into the home environment. And things like the toy industry or the manufacturers for home goods, it doesn't always, we're not at that same level of diligence yet.
I love that you take that into consideration. So it's environmentally good, and from a toxicology perspective, clean for the kiddos, because that's important for their little immune systems. Okay, let's go back
Let's
to
look
the
at
picture.
some other pictures.
Well, let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
So this is nothing I designed, but this is one of the things that I show a lot of people. This is a visual wayfinding board at the National History Museum in New York, and it's not there anymore because they changed all to iPads. But what I loved about it, that's actually my son.
Wow.
Being able to use actual pictures or PEC symbols or things in the environment for wayfinding, we do a lot of that because it really helps that individual understand where they're going.
Yeah.
And so for, even if you don't speak English, which they have a lot of visitors that are
Right.
not speaking English, they can go, oh, I want to go see the mummies. I go to floor 3 and here I go. And he could figure it out.
Right.
Anybody could. So it's looking at, how do people, if you're trying to make sure that these groups of individuals are as inclusive as possible, how do we look at wayfinding so that they can understand where to go in an airport or where to get a taxi or how to navigate through a building? And some of that's a safety concern too.
Absolutely.
If they can't get out of a building, that's a problem.
Now, do you design mostly for larger sites, or do you do mostly personal homes, or a combination thereof?
I've done everything. So I've done a lot of personal homes, a lot of personal spaces, classrooms, schools, entire schools, therapy clinics, everything from a private practicing doctor to a very large hospital. I'm getting a lot of requests now, and I've served in Minnesota on the Governor's Council for looking at autism and aging. And so, they can't go into a regular group home. That's not meeting their needs.
Right.
And they can't go into a senior living, a typical senior living space. So how do we create these environments that are going to make sure that they're successful and that they're leading a happy life? And so it's interesting because as we see the number of kids increase, and kids that are like my son's age, 22, now we're looking at all these aging factors.
Yes.
And it's a different set of circumstances, but it's just as important as when they're little.
Wow.
Tell us about your son today and what he's doing.
He's great. I mean, you would consider him to be severely autistic.
Really?
Yes, he is on the severe side, and
In terms of, is he nonverbal? Is
he speaks maybe 6-7 words a day.
Okay.
He's very, he's not. He can answer a question, but he's not conversational.
Okay.
And he's still not good. Like, it was super hot the other day, and he came down wearing a sweater. We're like, dude, So, and he needs a PCA. But what we've found is through technology in our home, we have cameras in our homes, and we have sensors so we can see what he's doing. So now he's had a lot more independence of living in our house without us,
Right.
which is huge for him.
Yeah, and huge for you too.
Yes, and he's a great traveler, and I think that's one of the things I learned from the design aspect is, kids need their schedules, but sometimes being so adherent to it is actually not a good thing, because then they can't transition into the world, right?
Right.
And when your flight gets delayed, they melt down. And I call it like an environmental stimuli diet. So at one point in his life, when he was 4 and 5, we couldn't take him out of the house. You couldn't take him into a retail store. You couldn't take him to the grocery store because he would just freak out. And my husband was like, well, let's just keep him at home. And I'm like, absolutely not.
Right.
I am a person that goes lots of different places and doesn't do the same thing at all every day.
Right.
So this kid's got to learn how to deal with it. And so we would start in going to places, and he would maybe last, at a children's museum 10 minutes. But we kind of figured out some ways to maybe make him do better, and we'd go back and we'd try it again, and we'd give motivation. And to the point where, by the time he was 10, I could fly him to Hawaii, and he wouldn't get upset if the plane wasn't on time, and he sits in a 5-star restaurant, no problem. I mean, he knows how to navigate in the real world.
And now he travels and speaks.
Yes, tell us about that. He's speaking?
He does speak when he's in front of an audience.
And how did you discover that?
It was one of those things that I had done a few political rallies for autism awareness and things like that, and I'd get him to come on stage and say one sentence, and he just loved it. Yeah. And so I got a call to this wonderful organization called Peace Love that creates a mental health awareness through art. And so it's a lot about art therapy. And they said, hey, would you come and talk about autism and art? Because we know your son loves to do art. And I said, well, sure, I can come and talk, but why don't we get him to talk? And they went, great idea. And I said, okay, let me tell you something. He really doesn't talk. So this could be a disaster. And actually, the rehearsal was a disaster.
Right.
But when he got out there and he saw the audience and he saw how they reacted to him, he was like, this is my calling.
What does he have to say when he talks?
He loves it. He talks about his art.
Okay.
He doesn't identify that there's anything wrong with him.
Right.
He doesn't think he has any type of disability, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, he thinks he's an artist, and he
Right.
is. He's
Right.
an
He is an
amazing
artist.
artist, and he sells his work, and it's getting put in a lot of healthcare organizations.
Okay, great.
You know, large organizations
Yeah.
that treat kids like ours.
Right.
And so he's really been making a name for himself. But he loves, the bigger the audience, the better.
That's
no fear.
fantastic.
I absolutely love it.
Great.
Can we look at a couple more of
Okay.
the pictures, Samantha? There was one you were showing that was from Frasier.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about this. Tell us a little bit about Frasier.
So Frasier does autism therapy. It's the premier autism therapy center in Minnesota, and we're just building their new Woodbury clinic. This was one of the smaller sites, so they're up to about 7 sites now in the metro area. And this, you can see there's lots of bright colors and lots of things going on, but the therapy environments are actually very neutralized. They're very, very controlled. We're using a lot of natural sunlight through solo tubes, but very, not a lot of color, hardly any pattern, so that the therapists can bring that in when they need to.
Sure.
But the waiting room, that's actually the Mind Institute. But the waiting room, we added in a lot more color, and that was more helpful for you know, the parents and how they felt their child coming.
Yeah.
So this is the Mind
So
Institute.
this is the Mind
The
Institute.
Mind Institute, which is in Sacramento.
Yes, and it was interesting because we were actually patients of the old center, and then the architecture firm called me and said, "Hey, could you help us on this?" I'm like, "We're actually patients," and so we had really
You took
bad
your son there.
experiences. Yeah, we had really bad experiences in the old hospital, and so
funny.
I'm like, "Let me tell you the places that need to get fixed."
There you
And so
go.
the new building had to not only be receptive to children with autism and their families, but also researchers. We're trying to
Right.
get the best and the brightest and
Right.
stealing them from, you know, AIDS research and cancer
Exactly.
research. And they need to feel like they're going to a beautiful place. So that is the lounge that you first walk into, and you can see there's hardly any pattern on the flooring, because that can be problematic for kids walking through the
Yes.
space. We're using a lot of natural materials, a lot of natural light, which natural light is really, really important. If they can go to the next slide, I think we're going through, there we go, the waiting room. Waiting rooms can be very dramatic for families that are coming in, especially if they don't have a diagnosis yet.
Yes.
And it's not just a mother and a child, it's like the grandparents are there.
Yeah.
And so we created these pods for the families to sit in for a good portion of the day. And it's actually looking out onto a secure courtyard. So if the kids have a half an hour break while they're interviewing the parents, the kids can be out in the courtyard running around and doing
Getting their yayas
vestibular
on. There's the
activity.
courtyard.
Right?
Lovely.
And that was January, so that's why it doesn't look so pretty.
Well,
But
no, it's very pretty.
better than Minnesota in
Not
January.
as lush as we're used to in California, but it looks very pretty.
Yeah.
Well, fascinating work. I mean, really interesting what you're doing. And
Where can people find more information?
So one of the things that I did is I wrote 3 books.
Okay.
Because
in your spare time.
yeah, in my spare
Yes.
time. It was help funded by ASID, which is American Society of Interior Designers, and I had so many requests coming in, and I've been very, very generous with all my research, because to me it's about getting the information out. There's more projects that I could ever look at, and I also do. Right now, I'm focused on commercial design and workplace. And that keeps me sane, you know. And there's ties between the two.
Of course.
But I can't do autism all the time.
Right,
It's
of course
actually not healthy for me.
Right.
So writing these books was one way to get the information out, and it's written in a way that there's the scientific and the very like textbook information. So if you're an architect or designer, you know what I'm talking about. And then on the other side, there's the personal stories and actual stories of actual clients that parents can really relate to. So it kind of has 2 sides to it.
So how can people find those?
It's pretty easy. That's Interior Design for Autism, and you go on Amazon. They're all ebooks, but they're based on age range. So because the individuals need different things at different ages. So birth through age 5, and then kind of the school age years, and then from early adulthood to geriatric.
Okay.
Wonderful. And all available on Amazon.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for the
AJ.
work that you're doing
Yeah.
and for coming and being with us today.
Very-
This was really fun.
Thanks for
Very
having me.
Eye-opening.
It was.
Wonderful.
And congratulations on how well your son is
Oh,
doing.
thank you.
That's
thank
a
you.
wonderful thing. All right, we're going to take a break,
Okay,
and then we're going to
and
be
we'll be
back
back.
with more Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
Neurodiversity in parents. One big happy family? We hope so. Anyway, what is neurodiversity? Everybody's talking a lot about it these days. Neurodiversity means that there's a view that people with autism just have a different way of being, and they should be honored for that. And then parents oftentimes look at autism as a disability or a disorder, and that can create some conflict. We sometimes throw up our hands, neurodiversity or neurodiversity. There can actually be some issues around this that we need to think about together. First of all, neurodiversity could be positive because it can create more of kind of a sense of acceptance in society. Yes, these people have autism, they're just different. It could possibly help create a sense of self-esteem that's improved in people with autism. They just realize, okay, I'm not damaged, I'm not bad, whatever, I'm just different. So that could be useful. On the downside, it could be an excuse to not give services to people with autism, to not have much empathy for their parents, and to not look at ways that they can be helped. And in many people that have autism, they do very well. Other people do not do well at all. They can't access services, they cannot enjoy their life, they're in pain. So it is important that we understand it's not just one issue. So how do we solve this when we look at neurodiversity? I think we have to look at it this way. It's kind of like when you have that big family dinner at Thanksgiving and everybody's around the table, you got your uncle, your aunt, your kids, your parents, everyone has an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mesh. And I think the way that we need to think about this is we need to respect each other's opinion, because actually we need each other. We need to be allies on this. The outside world is a big place for people with autism spectrum disorders and their families. We have to remember, we're one big, happy, dysfunctional family, and we need to behave that way. We should respect each other, listen to each other, and we will all have a great time when it comes time to get together and celebrate the lives of people with autism.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got a great guest.
Yes, we do. We're here with actor Jacob Lentz. Welcome, Jacob. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And Jacob is the lead role in a new film called Nathan's Kingdom. Tell us about what Nathan's Kingdom is all about, Jacob.
So the premise of Nathan's Kingdom is about basically finding peace and finding safety. The main character is Nathan. He is a person on the autistic spectrum, and basically he and his younger sister have gone through a lot when they were younger. Their dad left them very young, and at some point their mother died. And basically his sister told him about this place called the Kingdom, where everything's safe and happy and where you can feel better about yourself. And 10 years on, they're living on their own, trying to sustain themselves, but Nathan still thinks about the Kingdom.
Okay.
And so he wants to basically go and find the Kingdom in order to avoid social services, which want him to be in a group home.
Okay.
And basically it's just their sort of physical but also very personal journey about finding this kingdom and trying to find some peace and some just be able to feel better again.
Right, okay.
And the film raises some really, I think, topical and interesting questions about what happens when parents aren't there to take care of individuals. There's also a running theme. There's some addiction. That's the opiate addiction in the sister. So a lot there to deal with. How did you come to be on this film? What was the process for you to get cast as this role?
So I'm with an organization called Performing Arts Studio West. That's PASW for short. And basically they teach acting, singing, and dancing for people with disabilities. And they also look for them to have opportunities in film and to show off their talents as well. And the director also was looking for someone on the spectrum to play the role for his film.
Okay.
And I was there that day. I was relatively new to PASW, and he gave me the script to audition with. And I think I gave a lot into my performance that day, and he really liked it, and everything just sort of clicked from there.
Yeah, so you were chosen from about 200 other actors who are both neurotypical and on the spectrum, and you yourself are on the autism spectrum?
Yeah. I was diagnosed a few years after I was born.
Okay. All right. And you've been involved with a lot of different performing groups that work with actors on the spectrum, correct?
Yeah, so when I was 15 was about the time that I thought about being an actor. I joined this group called the Miracle Project,
Right.
which is another one of those organizations that shows people with autism and other disabilities.
Right. We're very familiar with the Miracle Project.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know Coach Elaine, Coach E.
Yeah.
And so you worked with them when you were a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and then you started getting involved in other groups for acting?
Yeah, I was, I found a summer theater group
Mm-hmm.
for people from like ages from like teens to preteens.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Delightful Productions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to be in a production of Beauty and the Beast and one for Pirates of Penzance, which was
Okay.
pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
But this has got to have been a whole other thing to be a lead character in a film, and this film is beautifully shot and looks like it has a substantial budget.
Mm-hmm.
There's a element to the film of this mystical fantasy world, and it's beautiful when we get to see aspects of that. What was it like being on the set and having the responsibility of being a lead role?
Yeah, it was really cool for me. I really think that I had a great time being able to work on my first film, and the story was really exciting. I thought that being able to play this character was very interesting to me, and the sets were great. We got to shoot out in Lone Pine, where there's like a lot of mountains.
Right.
And definitely a lot of exercise into it. Yeah.
Why don't we look at the clip?
Yeah,
To see
let's
the
take
trailer.
a look.
Yeah.
Laura? Do I have a kingdom?
Yes.
Will you help me find my kingdom?
I will never stop looking for it.
Being a younger sister, I wouldn't know what that's like.
Where were you, Laura? I hate you! I don't really think you know what you're doing. I think you need special care. Please.
Nathan, open the door.
People have been abandoning Nathan and I our whole lives. I'm not going to do the same to him. I have to believe that things will get better.
You need a big brother to protect you. I want to find the kingdom. This will solve everything.
I'm not afraid of you! You can't keep me from my kingdom!
Nathan! Nathan!
Beautiful film, really
Absolutely.
visually stunning.
And
Thank you.
clearly, amazing work on your part. How much of those emotional scenes, how much of that because some directors are very hands-on and try to get you into a state, and others just sort of stand back and let you do your work. What was it like on this set for you?
There was definitely a lot of preparation for the more emotional parts. I think what I gave on set was definitely what it needed to be.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident about how it came out.
What are the differences between this role, this character, and you personally, Jacob? You're both on the spectrum, but that by all means doesn't mean that you're alike.
Yeah, I think there's certainly different experiences with everyone on the spectrum.
Right.
And I think with Nathan, he's very willing to express himself more and really less afraid of what people think of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that anyone can definitely learn from, but definitely if you're dealing with something like Nathan, or if you're just going through life, I think Nathan certainly is the kind of person you like to think about.
So it's interesting because as we've talked to other actors who they're on the spectrum and they play somebody who's on the spectrum, a lot of times that actor might be verbal but be playing somebody who's nonverbal. But you're saying that Nathan actually likes to communicate more than you do in real life? Is that what you're trying to say? Was that hard?
I think it came a little easier than I thought it would. It's all about really like letting yourself go and not thinking too much about it. Like there's a little bit of a thought process, but when you're in the moment and you're really doing everything, then I think you really start to understand what's going on in the moment and the life and just taking everything in.
That's a talented actor.
Yes,
That's what that is.
it is.
And so the film has gone to 2 festivals and been very well received. What's next for the film?
Just getting more attention for it. I think we're going to be looking for more film festivals in the future, so definitely look out for us. We're trying to really promote this project and get distribution for it as well.
Right.
And that's when distribution happens, that's when our audience will be able to see it.
Yeah.
So what can they do right now to help make that happen? Is there a Facebook page they can go to and join?
Yeah, so there's a Facebook page right now. It's called Nathan's Kingdom. You can follow it and give us a like. We post stuff a lot every single day. We also have a website right now where you can get updates about our film. And yeah, just keep looking out for us. Maybe we'll show up at other film festivals in the future. Maybe do a Google search once in a while. We're definitely out there, so.
I'll make a deal with you.
great.
If you tell us when you're going to be in a city, we'll make sure that we tell our audience to let them know. Because I think that sometimes they think it's a terrible tease. They're like, well, now I want to see the movie.
Right.
And where can I see the movie? So if you'll tell us, if you know that, say, you're going to do a screening in Philadelphia, we'll put it out and let people know that that's where they can see it. So wonderful. And I hope you get a distribution deal soon so that we can all be watching it
At the
in all the
theaters.
places that we should be seeing
Right.
it.
Right.
What's next for you as an actor?
I'm definitely looking out for other auditions. My agent at PASW is still putting me out for other things. I've also been very interested in filmmaking in general, so I've been looking for film crew gigs. I took a few classes at the film production program at West LA College, so I know a lot about lighting and camera work, and I can also be a PA and just get a lot of experience and help out with things as well.
Amazing.
Great.
And is that the direction that you want to go in with your life? Be somebody both in front of and behind the camera?
It's certainly something that I've thought about. I've also been thinking about writing a script lately. I started part of a treatment, so there's some pieces coming together, and I'm definitely excited about the future.
Great.
Amazing.
I think you have a bright future, Jacob. We're
Thank
going to
you.
keep an eye on you and watch out for you in other productions and other film roles, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.
Come back and see us again, okay?
All right.
All right, we're going to
Sounds
take a
good.
break and be back with more of Let's Talk Autism after these messages.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
And we are back with Let's Talk Autism, and I am joined by Shannon on the phone today. She's coming to us from Vancouver, Washington. Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
You're
Great
up.
interviews.
Yeah, those were. I was really, it's a pleasant surprise to see a young man with autism being cast as a character with autism, because that's not always the case.
It's a lovely, lovely thing, but I think it's the way that the entire industry is going to go now.
Yeah.
And that's a lovely thing.
Right, because there's so many great actors out there that are on the spectrum. So we hope we will be seeing more of that.
Yes.
So how has your summer been going, Shannon?
You know, I feel like the summer has flown by. I don't know about you, but it feels like a 3-day weekend. And,
Yes.
It wasn't long enough, and I can't believe that we're already really staring down the barrel of going back to school already.
I know.
I want to bring up that next week when I'm back in the studio, we're going to be starting to talk a lot about how do we set our kids up for success going back to school. It's funny, our plans for the summer got all discombobulated and rearranged, and we've done a lot.
Right.
But, not what we planned on doing. So I guess it all evens out in the end. But you just had a great weekend away, didn't you?
Yes, we went to San Diego, and we went to we went to SeaWorld, and we went to the aircraft carrier. For some reason, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but it was great. It was a great experience. Wyatt did very well. He didn't have any meltdowns, which I expected, but he didn't have them. And even though the crowds and the heat and everything, he did very well. So we had a fun time.
Well, I love it. I think it's so funny that sometimes we, our fears of what could happen are not fulfilled.
Right.
Which is a very interesting thing.
Right.
But, the fears are there because they've happened in the past.
Yes.
It's not like we're crazy for being afraid of that.
Right.
But it's good to think of it and go, yeah, but that doesn't always happen.
Yes.
And it's luscious when our kids, when we can go and do something fun and exciting and different with them, and they're in a good space to receive it. That's a very luscious thing.
Right. So I'm glad to hear you're going to be talking about some back to school tips in the weeks ahead, because I think as much as we dread, like, oh, summer's here, what are we going to do all summer? Then we start thinking about, oh, now back to school is here.
Yeah.
And that's that comes with its own set of fears and trepidation about what's going to happen.
It really does, but there are some things that we can do to reduce that. and to really up the success level. And one of the best things at this point in the summer, and man, I've been so aware of this week because it's kicking me in the keister, is that we need to really gradually, not cold turkey, but gradually get back, start moving the dial back towards sleeping when we're supposed to and waking when we're supposed to. It's hard, but now is the moment to really just by 5 minutes today for everybody to go to bed 5 minutes earlier than they did last night, and then in a couple of days we'll do 5 or 10 more minutes, but before you know it we'll be back on a schedule, because those first couple of days are killer going back to school.
Yeah, it's a very important point to remember that schedules are going to change. We need to adjust slowly so it's not such a shock.